Welcome to Issues and Answers with Diane Kinderwater. Issues and Answers is presented as a public service to New Mexicans by State Employees Credit Union, who have been proudly serving the families of New Mexico locally and abroad since 1958. State Employees Credit Union is ready to help you and your family with all your financial goals. And now, Issues and Answers with Diane Kinderwater.
Welcome to the program. I'm Diane Kinderwater. We are still in this new year, so I'm going to still wish you and your loved ones and your family, if they're the same, a happy new year, a happy 2021 from everybody here at Issues and Answers and KCHF TV. Again, the new year is a time to look forward, a time for new beginnings, and a time many people make resolutions, and perhaps by the time this program is airing, you've already broken your resolution. Well, I'm going to suggest one is to take a look at this book called On Life, the author, Dr. Harvey White, and it's thoughts on life's challenges, because if 2020 has anything to do with it, we know 2021, we are going to be facing still a lot of life's challenges. I wish it weren't the case and we can pray that we don't have challenges, but isn't that what life's about? I have found that On Life, Thoughts of Life's Challenges is a very helpful book for you, and I think for young people who need to look at their journey in life. And it isn't me saying it, which I'd like to tell my son. It isn't me, it's Dr. Harvey White saying it. So it's not mom, it's someone else. So please stay with us as we discuss his book, why he wrote it, and what he hopes becomes of this book and our lives. So stay with us. We'll be back right after this. Welcome back to the program. Again, Happy New Year. And if you don't have any resolutions yet, maybe we'll give you some ideas on this show. I know I have one from one of the chapters, deciding about making some changes. Do it today, make it easy, and do it daily. And I thought, well, I'll start tomorrow. But the book says you got to do it today. Start today, make it easy, and daily. And mine was just get up, read the paper before I go for my run, and do it daily. Sounds easy, but actually the paper on the internet, look at that first, then go for the run. Because if you don't get to it. So that's what I resolved. I started it, but it says to have to do it daily. I think about it every day. Don't do it every day, but I got to do it. So that's mine. Dr. Harvey White, thank you so much for being a part of the program. And you're going to be taking it away because I've said enough.
It's great to be here, Diane. You know, for the audience, just to reflect again, I'm a cardiologist. And you'd think, oh, he does heart operations, he fixes people, et cetera, et cetera. But you remember back when we talked about 4 or 5 years ago, we talked about a career change for me, which was to begin to focus on people's health more, not fixing them, but how to keep them healthy for the long run. And we started this company called Vessel Health, and at that time I was talking a lot about how you eat and where, exercise and things like that. But this book that I've written recently takes that a whole different step.
That's interesting. 35 years over 35 years as a cardiologist. I think
Yes.
you were at the Heart Institute of New Mexico and now with Vessel Health, and looking at more innovative preventative health to prevent heart attacks and heart disease is what you're looking at with Vessel Health.
That's correct.
But you were busy. You were busy with that, and I understand you were thinking of retiring. I mean, you created a whole building, a whole business here in New Mexico, yet you had time to write this?
It was not that difficult to write. It was difficult to publish, and I could get into that. But writing just kind of came naturally. I had been thinking a lot about how we live. And that came out of some observation that individuals, patients especially, have their biggest challenges not with whether to eat a chicken or fish or a hot dog or not, but with many other challenges that affect their thinking and then affect the rest of their lives. So that's where I began.
That was a little confusing, that to me. How you related eating choices to the rest of their lives.
Well, in the beginning, when we thought about Vessel Health, we were relatively simplistic in our view of what it takes to be healthy.
Yeah.
That is, exercise, eat these foods, and take these vitamins. But what I found was that is much harder said than done. And the difficulty
isn't it? Okay.
is in how we think and process life. And if our thinking and our processing of life challenges isn't really well aligned, we can never accomplish those things.
To be able to, because there's going to be another challenge after another
That's
challenge
right.
after another.
That's exactly
I was
right.
saying at the beginning of the show, the beauty of this book for me was reading it and thinking, oh, I don't have to share this with my son, who I love to instruct on
Yeah.
life,
Yeah.
because I've gone through the challenges, but you're doing it. You're doing it in this book.
I am. You know, what I did is I picked about 25 life challenges. And you'll recall that each of them, the writing is very short and simple. There's a photograph,
Oh,
and then there's a
beautiful.
little bit of draw in, like maybe teeing up a concept that might ring true with somebody.
Mm-hmm.
And then there is a bit of prescription. But as we'll get to later in the show, I also wrote a workbook that goes with that, because I concluded that it's very difficult for me to tell you what to do. You have to decide that.
Isn't
And
that true? You just offer it? That is true
That's
of a
right.
parent
That's
too.
right.
It's
That's
hard to tell people, but you can guide and suggest and say you faced it. Going through some of the chapters, I liked, being that person. Inner strength versus resilience. The goal of increasing inner strength versus resolve. I didn't think of them as being different.
Yes, and that it's interesting, curious. Another individual asked me about that, and it's a bit nuanced. So there is a chapter about inner strength. Inner strength to me is a little different than resilience. Resilience is kind of a hardening. I am not going to do something. I am going to not become victimized by, my mother or whatever. What I want to say.
That's getting a little personal now.
Yes, but circumstance. So
Yes.
I'm going to hold still. I'm going to fight. Inner strength is a more inward-outward phenomenon. So it derives from inside of oneself, and it is a projection of how we deal with the world. So that's an interesting nuance, but I think it speaks to the nature of this book, where I'm trying to draw out in people their inner strength and let them project it on the world, and not simply either harden or do what somebody tells you to do.
And again, it comes from within, and
Correct.
it's more positive than
That's
being
right.
resilient.
That's exactly right.
It's a more positive term
Yeah.
that young people especially need. Their self-confidence. They just can't be resilient to the problems, but they have to be positive, and then knowing they have that inner strength.
It's interesting you mentioned that, because certainly young people have some of these challenges, but I would suggest that many older people have them as well. And sitting in an office with patients all the time, I recognize that in spite of many having lived many years, and you would think, oh, I can accomplish that, I've done it all, their worry increases, their perseveration or thinking about challenges increases. It doesn't always become easier. So this is unequivocally a book for all, and not just young people.
Thanks for that. Bringing it. Doesn't get easier. It doesn't get easier.
Perhaps for you, but some people maybe not.
I don't think so. I liked your. I'm going to share I liked them all, mine. But then you're going to share with me your
Sure.
favorites. You gave examples on enough. Some people have great impulses and they don't manage them.
That's
and they
correct.
can stuff themselves, including dessert, and say, I've had enough. But you differentiate having just enough.
That's right. And you can think of that in eating, how we eat. Eating has become an entertainment, but really it's sustenance. It's the way we basically feed ourselves, just like we feed our dogs, our cats, our horses, and even our chickens. But we've gone beyond that, or many have, so it is difficult to say enough. But that concept applies to everything in life. Do I have a big enough house? Do I need another car? Do I need more jewelry? Do I need this? Do I need another trip? And if one is always looking for more, one can never be satisfied with what is. So it's really a suggestion of how to be satisfied. I've had just enough.
Just
I'm
enough.
Happy. I'm happy.
And happy with it, not just the food, but the money, the savings accounts, the stocks, the education.
All the above.
Just enough.
That's right.
Instead of, enough. I liked your regret. I try to live without regret. And you had a chapter discussing regret and how we face that.
And that's true too. And it's a little bit the same as the enough chapter, which is basically says when it comes to regrets, we need to pause and not carry them constantly with us. Constantly looking back, constantly conditioning our lives. It's better to just put some things behind us and move forward.
And not have the regret. Yeah.
Well, not live with them.
Not live with the regret. Not live with the regret.
That's right.
That's true. I liked on self-talk. That's something. I try to do some of these things. I mean, that's why this is very practical. What we all do is self-talk. You're going like that. What?
It's a great concept too. I mean, everybody talks to oneself constantly. It is just jabber, 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 constantly coming in the door here, thinking about this interview, et cetera, et cetera. What I've found is that the self-talk is very difficult to remediate or cure a situation after it happens. That is, you end up being really spinning one's tires, saying, I should think of this differently, et cetera, et cetera. The point I want to make in the self-talk chapter is often it's best to address these things beforehand. It's like the athlete at the Olympics. He or she prepares himself for the event. And when the event comes, it's easier. And the same happens here. So coming in for an interview, I could get all nervous about it right up to the time, or I could say, Diane's great, I'm going to have a great interview, and I'm just walking in the door.
You point out practice anticipation. That's where you're saying you're
Correct.
Prepared.
That's correct.
And practice affirmative rituals, talking to yourself. And I do this because life is challenging. I mean, it seems like everybody or everything is out to get you. It really does seem like that.
Yes.
It really does. But when my self-talk, I tell myself, I do it. I not only can do it, but I do it. I'm great. But my kind of secret is I tell myself, I love myself. When I'm facing something tough, that's what I say. I love myself.
And it's an extremely positive affirmation. It's very difficult for many because many of us live with doubt, constant doubt.
Well, sure.
It starts when we're this tall,
Sure.
and through elementary school, junior high, am I appreciated? Do I have the right friends? It goes on and on and on and on. And it doesn't just quiesce automatically. I wish it did.
But again, I think you stay in here saying, I'm great, right? Saying, I'm great, I'm great.
Yes. Now, there is a chapter on greatness, and we often define ourselves as being good or bad, great or not great, by what other people think of us. But in truth, in the long run, what defines that is what we think of ourselves. So if we can say to ourselves that I did a great job, I'm a great person, I did my best, basically, that is really all it takes. Because in the final analysis, we only live with ourselves. As wonderful as you are, Diane, you might say, I look great today. It's not going to carry the day for me, It might take me out the door for an hour, but really, in the long and short of it, it's what I think of myself. And that is a definition that we can make in some ways irrespective of what others think of us.
That's one thing I would share with my son. Again, other people with their children saying, you have to like yourself. Doesn't matter what other people say, as you will find happiness as long as you respect yourself and you love yourself.
Right. And again, that's where it gets to this journal. I want to bring it out a little bit more. I think it's difficult to preach to people, to tell them what to do. And so in the journal, I ask individuals to write down a circumstance or situation that they might have found challenging. It might have to do with an embarrassment in this instance. It might have to do with other issues in their lives. And then take a moment and observe that a little bit. What was it really about? How did I get through it? What was it that made me not crash and burn, here I am today. And then write down in just a couple of sentences what prescription I would provide to someone else. So instead of Dr. White speaking, it's Diane Kinderwater speaking. It's someone speaking, you're speaking to yourself. This is what I learned in this situation, and this is how I would apply that in the future. And that's much, much, much more memorable than what someone else tells you.
Coming up with it yourself.
Yes, and you'll see in those chapters, I threw in a little byline for each chapter. There's one on chores. Okay, I like the one on chores. Chores as a paradigm or model for how we live life, and it begins with a byline that says, "It's all got to be done." And I learned that from an older individual who was working on a house in a very difficult project. And I talked to him, I said, "I'm so sorry that you have to do this." And he goes, "It's all got to be done." In other words, it was total acceptance, okay? It's all got to be done. So you can also kind of reduce some of these concepts into just a little line. You can use lines I wrote, or you can come up with your own.
A lot of them are my favorites, but the journey is the success. And I had heard that from someone in the past. Mm-hmm. Actually, I mentioned him a lot on the show, former Governor Gary Johnson,
sure. Yeah.
Who always ran. He ran, for governor and then for president 2 times.
And he runs, period.
And literally runs
Yeah.
races.
Yeah.
And I learned from him, and it's in your book, The Journey is the Success. He would say, it's not the ultimate, the end, if you win or lose, because you might not win the running race. Mm-hmm. You might not win the presidential race, but you are a winner as long as you enjoy the journey that it has taken to get there.
That's
to
right.
the end point.
That's right.
And you have it in yours, the journey is the success.
And, to some people that's trite, and it's said over and over in different ways, but I think it's so true. An example might be a couple comes in to see me, and I say, "How are you doing?" "Oh, we're just struggling with this remodel of our house. We're having to make all these decisions. We've got to get a dishwasher. We've got to get this. We've got to do that." And they're just sort of this engrossed in an endless decision-making process. Someday, the house will be done. Everything is going to be done. And they're going to put their hands down, and they're going to go,
"What's next?
What's next?
Next?
What's now?" So it is only the living that really makes a difference. It's not the end. And it's so hard to impress. I mean, these are, I mention these things. It's not to say that I don't have to talk to myself, too. Very true, very true.
I liked you're discussing the chores. It's all got to be done. Part of it, the personal pride in getting it done, and also that is life. Getting it done is life.
Get it done.
Getting it done is life.
Yeah.
How did you decide? All your life, is this the first book you've published?
This, Diane, is the first book I've written, and I got into it. I had been writing regularly as I was the president of all the doctors in the area for several years, and interestingly, I had to write a column every month when I was the year before, president, and the year after. And I got in this habit of writing. Lo and behold, after I was done with my tenure, they decided, "Oh, you don't have to do that anymore." So I had done this for 4 years. I could have just made a rule, we don't have to do it. But I had been in this habit of writing, and I tried to write about things that were meaningful. Well, that continued, and I started to write these chapters, and I said, well, what is this really all about? And I hearkened back to the kind of doctor I am at its root. Yes, I was a very accomplished technician in my day. I could skillfully put stents in people's brains and their carotids and their hearts and this and that. But curiously, back when I was 12, My family went to Ganado, Arizona at the mission there, okay, which is next to the Hopi Reservation. And my in-laws were mission doctors there. And my brother and I played on the playground or whatever, went swimming and all. But something about that rubbed off. And I think that deep down inside, I've been a very mission-oriented physician ever since. That also came out when I did serve in the Indian Health Service later, also in Arizona with the White Mountain Apache. But the kind of topics that kind of just sprung out here are personal, mission-based topics. Okay, they're not mechanical. They're not like, oh, just do this. You know, like take this pill. Okay, it just doesn't work. So they have a deeper foundation that really is why they may speak to some people, and they come from a different part of me than the physician that is the physician that started the heart hospital or did this or did that. That, you know, is really based in knowing individuals, listening to them, and trying to really connect with them.
Do you have a favorite chapter? Not a favorite, but one that might have the most impact on people's lives?
Well, I wrote a one that's a little bit similar that really harkens back, and I could just tell you a little bit about it. It's not in the book, but it gives people a sense of the style. And I'll just read the beginning, and we won't get too far. It is important because of the pandemic. So the title is On Weary.
Now, would this be a new chapter of another book,
Well,
or
you'll
is this
see.
something you wrote? Is this something you wrote?
I wrote it. I wrote it, yes.
And what are you going to publish it, or?
No, I think it's a bit of a, it's an appetizer, okay? So that if people like something like this, when I read a little bit of it, they might be more inclined to read about the book. So On Weary, and I'll just start, it begins in the same genre as the book. So it's a word, On Weary. Hold your head up. The Weary Traveler. Sunday, 8 p.m. A turbulent landing following a long flight from overseas. Weather rolling in. Flights grounded. Local hotel rooms all booked. Now stranded in San Francisco. Appointments tomorrow. Next available flight not till Tuesday. Luggage checked. It's not the airline's fault. We are all weary. The coronavirus pandemic, now in its ninth month, has leveled a harsh toll on each of us. And it goes on and it compares what we're living now to the feelings that somebody trapped in an airport might feel that can't get out. No way, there's no exodus.
There's no way.
And so what does that individual do? That individual has to cope. There is no choice, okay? And so the way we cope with this pandemic time is very similar. We need to adapt, not easy. We need to create routine, and I really emphasize that. Our routines are the foundation of how we live. And if we panic and just flutter around and don't establish a routine in our lives during this time, we will be forever distraught and will not get through the times. I talk about connection, and you know that as well as I. This program is an example of connection and the importance of connection. So in On Weary, I tee up a concept, the pandemic, using something people can relate to, and then talk about some solutions and end with, but to know where you are going, each of us must look to the future and always remember to hold our heads up. So that's a bit of a style. The chapters are not long. They have a certain cohesion to them. And what I write about there, translated through this one little chapter I wrote on the side, tells one a lot about the style of the book and how it might help people with things that they don't even know that they're dealing with.
When people look at, thank you for that. Again, I like connecting the pandemic to being stuck at a airport with all your luggage gone and no way out.
No way.
Of course, I would think how I would cope with it is hoping it's going to end. Like, I'm going to get out of this.
Hope is big, and we have hope now.
But to end it, looking forward to the end.
There will be an end.
But not wasting the time
No.
by having your routines. It's just in the couple minutes left. Are people able just to purchase the book, or do you always suggest the workbook go along?
I think they go well together. Each are available on Amazon currently. They will be available in bookstores starting in January, a little after January 1st.
Okay. Bookstores throughout the United States, here in New Mexico.
They will be distributed nationally, internationally. Amazon, though, you can look up my name, Harvey J. White, MD, and the book On Life. But we have a website. That's the easiest thing to do, is to go to onlifebook, one word, .com.
Oh, that's easy.
onlifebook.com. There's a preview if one wants to see some pictures and picture of me and stuff like that. And then there are buttons to purchase the book, the journal, and there's a section to sign up, to enroll if one wants to enroll, because I send out communications or missives about every 2 weeks. And they do keep people a bit buoyed. So onlifebook.com is the closest and easiest way to get to us.
And beautiful cover here and beautiful photographs
Thank you so
within the
much.
book.
Yeah.
In the next 30 seconds, we are starting a new year, 2021. What advice, suggestions as a doctor, as an author of On Life, would you like to share with the viewers, Dr.
I
White?
am no different than anybody else. I see a new year as a potential rebirth. And I need that as much as any and all of the audience and all of you. Rebirth is a big part of life. And I urge you all to look at the next year as being one of a great future.
Very positive. Thank you, Dr. Harvey White, my guest today. Thanks for watching. Make it a great week, great year. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
Issues and Answers with Diane Kinderwater is presented as a public service to New Mexicans by State Employees Credit Union, which has proudly been serving the families in New Mexico locally and abroad since 1958. State Employees Credit Union is ready to help you and your family with all your financial goals and is the exclusive sponsor of Issues and Answers with Diane Kinderwater in order to inform, educate, and better the lives of New Mexicans. To comment on today's program or to purchase a DVD copy of any Issues and Answers program, visit sunbroadcasting.org or call us at 505-345-1991.